everyone. We are sorry for the technical difficulties, but very excited to be able to offer a hybrid option for the meeting. So it can be in person and virtual. We are going to start today's meeting with the roll call. And remember, everyone, ASL is available.
Sorry, actually, what we just got word before the meeting, one of the interpreters couldn't come and they can't do it with less than two. So there is no interpretation today. Our apologies. That was a last minute cancellation.
Oh my goodness, I am so sorry for that. Do we have any, well, I guess it doesn't help to, can we even put into the chat anything? Just to let people know.
We aren't able to chat on the city's Zoom.
Apologies to anyone that's relying on that service this afternoon. So we will go ahead and start with roll call. Lena Andrews. Dr. Bay.
Present.
Tammy Thompson. Aaron Garrett. Councilperson Gross. Mark Masterson.
Here.
Deidre Washington. Marcus Reed. Dr. Spradley.
Yes. Here.
Alan Cisco.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Alan. Derek Tillman. Adrian Wanaha is present. Kelly Seabrun.
That's me, kind of. Present.
Kelly, are you there?
Yep, I'm present. I'm Kelly Ware and have been for a little while now. That's all.
So Adrian Wanaha is present.
I'm here as well.
And I can't see our last member. I'm so sorry.
It's vacant, but
Yeah,
Kelly's here too.
And Kelly is here. Thank you so much, Kelly.
And did you get Karen Garrett?
We did not. Okay. Oh, and Lena Andrews has arrived in the room. Hi, everyone. Sorry, everybody. So Derek, can we confirm we have a quorum?
Karen, I am here.
Yeah,
Great.
we do have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. We had a little bit of a dark moment there. So we're going to actually move from roll call to review and acceptance of the minutes from October 5th. Hopefully everyone's had a moment to look at those minutes. Do we have any corrections, additions, or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, so I think I heard Dr. Bay and Dr. Spradley at the same time. Can we take that as a first and a second?
Perfect. Yes.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'm gonna recuse myself. I wasn't here.
So we have an abstention from Lena Andrews. Do we have any other abstentions? Do we have any nays? Great, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Now we're going to move into public comment. We do have a registered public comment for this afternoon here with us in this space. So can we please have Megan? Would you like to make your comments at this time? Do I just say it from here? Is there a better place to move to?
Maybe a little closer to the mic. Might be good. Like,
I think.
oh yeah, there. Sure, I guess.
Wherever you're comfortable.
Do a sound check, Megan. Let's make sure folks can hear you.
You will hear Megan if you start talking.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure I was in the right spot where the microphone is.
We can hear you, Megan.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here in person, and the space is lovely, and I encourage everyone to come in person and enjoy the conference room. My name is Megan Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. And my comment today is to reflect on the hard work that we all have done together in working towards allocating the HOS limited funds in a manner that addresses both equality and equity. I believe that we've made good progress towards that goal, particularly with the current allocations that have been proposed. And so what my comment today is based on is to remind all of us here and to remind the advisory board that the work doesn't end with today's vote. I ask that each of you continue to commit your time and energy and resources in November and December towards your committee meetings and towards the outcomes and planning on what it is that we want to accomplish and how we're going to accomplish that in 2024. For example, I can say that the DEI committee will be working on identifying how the advisory board can assess routinely and regularly over the next year the outcomes of the HOS programming in order to analyze it and understand it and to pivot when necessary. Additionally, we need to have ongoing discussions about how to spend the demonstration funds and be intentional in understanding how we want to use those funds, what's most important to address, and making sure that we are proactively considering what we contend that the demonstration funds can be used for. And so simply put, to prepare for 2024, I ask that we continue collaborating and planning and working hard to making sure that these funds are accomplishing the goals that we've set out to do. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Megan. Evan actually received some written comment, so we are going to introduce that to the group at this time.
Sure. You want me to, I can read this now? And
Yeah,
then
I think that
it'll
would be
be-
perfect. We'll put everything and then we'll open it up.
These were comments that were posted on the draft allocation plan that the URA had public for the past month here. There are not names associated with it, but these are just comments one by one that were received. Please reinstate funding for the small landlord fund. Next comment is consider allocating funds / assistance to help would-be first-time homeowners secure homes during this market that has been adversely inflated by speculators such as BlackRock and Vanguard, who are converting Pittsburgh housing stock into rentals and driving up rent across the city. Find a way to combat their corporate greed and exploitation and help Pittsburghers get a fair shake. Next comment. Why is there no funding for small landlord fund? We are the lifeblood for housing. We also need funding for the rising cost of water, sewer, and trash. If you leave the sewer payments up to the tenants, they don't pay and the property owner gets a nice lien on the property. I have thousands of dollars of past due sewer bills. Next comment, please take $650,000 from the for sale development and put it into the housing stabilization program and take $350,000 from the rental gap program and put it in the legal assistance program. The next comment. Additional allocation should be made to the legal assistance program, especially for tenants in the 50% AMI and 80% AMI brackets. I believe each bracket should have at least $100,000 in additional funding available. Funding could be reallocated from the for sale development program or the rental gap program due to these programs still having leftover funds from previous years. It'd be great to have some of the funding for the housing stabilization program at 80% AMI and some additional funds for the legal assistance program at 50% AMI. I'm not clear why there is such a difference for the LAP funds at the middle income level when compared to the low end and the high end. The next comment, please send over legal assistance program. Pittsburghers up to 80% AMI deserve access to free, high quality legal aid to keep them in their homes. With the odds stacked against tenants with 12% favorable rates, it is so important to have representation. People who are at the 50 to 80% income are often vulnerable because they are at a crossroads where their income is technically too high for some social services. With housing stabilization program running out of funds soon, it's very clear that we need more rental assistance up to $1.7 million or more. There is a huge need for accessible rental assistance. Many people exhausted COVID-specific rental assistance programs because of the pandemic. With such low wages and high rent, it makes it very easy to fall behind on rental assistance. Please increase your funding and increase the thresholds to 80%. The next comment, additional allocation should be made to the legal assistance program, especially for tenants in the 50 to 80% AMI brackets. I believe each bracket should have at least $100,000 in additional funding available. funding could be reallocated from the for sale development program or the rental gap program due to these programs still having leftover funds. That might have been the same comment submitted twice. Apologies there. The last comment suggests increasing the allocation to HSP and LAP and reducing the rental gap allocation. Suggests keeping HAP allocation as is. Those are the extent of our comments, or the comments that were received.
Wonderful. So we thank everybody for their input and, making the effort to get this information in front of the group. We know that we're always in these competing priorities, and this is incredibly helpful to get this comment. At this time, we would like to open up for additional public comment if there is anybody here present in the room that would like to speak. I was hopeful, but we may not have additional comments for today. Maybe they were all captured already in the comments that we've already received. In our hybrid meetings going forward, we're going to do our absolute best to take public comment, even if folks did not register ahead of time, so we can keep this dialogue going. So with that being said, I think we're at the end of our public comment.
Oh, Adrian, I got some feedback that it's hard to find the Zoom link, like on the website. So I haven't looked for it. I get it in an email, but
That is true.
so I don't know. what to do.
Yeah, I will typically, the public is asked to join through the city's YouTube channel.
Oh,
So like public members, public people who want to join would view by YouTube, and only either registered public commenters or advisory board members would join through Zoom. I think the city, that started during COVID, just wanting to control who was in the meeting and able to unmute themselves and speak at various times.
So that is definitely, again, feedback that we've heard before, and we want to continue to explore that. The hope is that maybe this in-person meeting also gives people more avenues, but that doesn't mean that we want to let that drop. How do we join virtually? So let's continue, when we have our next agenda meeting, let's continue to talk about ways we might be able to get that door a little more widely open and make it more obvious to folks. Thank you for that, Lena. That's impactful. So we're actually, we're going to talk next about the 2024 annual allocation plan. Or are we going to do the rental gap program?
The agenda has the rental gap program projects first, and then we'll leave the rest of the time to talk about the plan set.
I apologize. I have maybe an old draft of the agenda.
Oh,
Mine actually has the allocation plan first and then rental gap. So my apologies of it.
okay. No, it's fine. I mean, we do have some external people on the line and in person, so it'd
Great.
probably be best to do these projects first and then.
That sounds perfect. And you had said that, but I got trapped in my agenda. So we have our presentation on the first project, Oakland Pride.
Yeah, hi. So good afternoon, my name is Ben Payton. I am the residential manager of the residential lending department here at the URA. So I'm gonna speak today on two projects that are rental gap program loans. I think I just want to give a shout out real quick that David DiBernardo is the lending analyst who's managing these projects and has done, almost all of the work on them. He just happens to be out this week, so I'm, stepping in, pinch hitting for him this week and presenting on these projects. So we have got two pretty exciting projects here. So first off, we have the Oakland Pride project. This is a request to authorize the URA to enter into a rental gap program loan for $1.6 million with Oakland Pride Housing LLC for the construction of the Oakland Pride project. That's it, Derek. Will be the Derek. Yeah. Okay, Derek. There you go. Oakland Pride Housing is going to be a 6-story, 48-unit LGBTQ plus friendly senior housing community in the Oakland neighborhood. This is a new construction project located at 3133 Forbes Avenue. The project is located along a new rapid transit line within walking distance of parks, hospitals, and restaurants and other amenities. 100% of the units will be considered affordable. When complete, the project will include 6 units for seniors, 6 units for seniors at 20% AMI, 24 units at 50%, 11 units at 60%, and 7 units at 80% AMI. 30 of the units will serve seniors using project-based vouchers from the Housing Authority. The development is a partnership between Presbyterian Senior Care Network and a national for-profit, mission-driven developer, Affirmative Investments. PSCN and Affirmative Investments have partnered on 4 previous projects, resulting in 311 combined units. The total development costs are estimated to reach about $29 million. This is a 9% low-income housing tax credit project. Oakland Housing received the award in 2022 from PHFA, and the URA funds are meant to help close the gap in financing of the project. Additional project financing other than the URA gap loan of 1.6 million includes and the LIHTC equity includes Housing Authority gap financing, a permanent mortgage from PHFA, and grants totaling about $1.3 million. So for the board members that received the loan review packet, you might have noticed that in the sources and uses section, we identified a gap of about $2 million that currently exists in the project. So we do understand that there is this projected gap in the project right now, but we feel that it's still in the best interest to move forward with the board action for a couple of reasons. First of all, it shows that the URA's continued commitment to this project and a recognition that because this is a 9% LIHTC deal, the RGEP program is and always was going to be involved in this project no matter what, to help fill a financing gap. And second, proving this project is a signal to the other funders involved in the deal that now is the time to step up and commit to this project. We've been in close touch with the development team throughout our involvement in the project, and we believe that we're very confident that they're going to work closely with the other funders on the deal to help fill the gap.
Can you remind the group of those partners?
Yeah, so right now we're looking, there's HACP who has gap financing. There's grants totaling about $1.3 million. I did not bring up my loan packet, which I should have done that. It's broken out in detail in the sources and uses section in the loan packet. Sorry about that. PSCN will act as property manager and will work with area service providers to provide needed and useful services for a senior clientele. And also involved here is UPMC who owned the land and is leasing it to the project for $1 for 75 years. And finally, construction is estimated to start in February 2024 and completed in the winter of 2025. And before I open it up to the group for questions, we have Jim Pfeiffer here from PSCN, and you'd like to say a few words, Jim, that would be great.
Thank you very much for having me today. Those of you who aren't familiar, Presbyterian Senior Care is the largest nonprofit provider of senior services in Western PA. 32 of our communities are affordable housing. We serve about 2,000 seniors and persons with disabilities a year. And this will be our 9th project in the city of Pittsburgh. So it's exciting to be doing this. This is the result of about 6.5 years of work and planning. Our 3rd site for this project, and a lot of input from the LGBTQ+ community. In this, we have several organizations as service partners. We have an advisory group that's been meeting to help us in the planning. We are through all the city planning and approvals process, and are actually in the process right now of finalizing our building permit. So we have 2 more small hurdles to climb. One with some additional PHFA funding, and one with some additional funding from the Housing Authority. But we did learn this week, and I'm not sure we communicated this, but if there's a $500,000 grant from the Weinberg Foundation in the package, we did receive the letter this week that we received the full $500,000 from Weinberg, which was greatly appreciated. So this project, very exciting opportunity for us to serve this population. We've been doing research with some other communities around the country to make sure, including working with Megan here, to make sure we work that fine line between fair housing and making this project LGBTQ friendly. And we feel very comfortable with what we've learned and what we've done, that this project can be very successful. We've gotten almost 200 informal inquiries about this project even before we're in the ground. So we're also very aware of the need for this type of housing in the city of Pittsburgh. So thank you for allowing me to be here today. And if there's questions, I would be happy to answer.
So much. So yeah, I think we can open it up at this point. If there's any questions or
Questions, comments? Any?
Yeah, This is
information?
Alan. This is Alan. This seems like a great project, and I know the folks at Oakland Planning are really excited about this. The community development group in the community. What's the repay note on the home funds in the sources? I'm just not familiar with what that means.
Here, Alan, this is Evan speaking. I'm not sure if I'm on camera or not. Evan Miller from the URA, and Home Investment Partnerships is a federal source that the URA receives through the city, and we're budgeting a certain amount of project repayment funds from loans that have been closed and on operating projects.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So you got the URA uses some of their home allocation in the form of loans, and then so this 600,000 comes from the payback on those loans.
Exactly, and
Okay.
here, the reason that the authorizations speak to $1 million is that we're here just talking about the HOF financing piece, but overall, the URA board will be asked to approve a $1.6 million loan for this project.
Yeah, no, understand the two sources, just didn't understand that that's how you guys do some of your home funds. It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Sure.
This is Adrienne Wanaha speaking, and I just wanted to speak on behalf of two groups. So the Allegheny County Local Housing Options Team Accessibility Work Group supports this project, as does the Western PA LGBTQ+ Older Adult Advocacy Team. You're welcome. Do you have additional questions, comments, clarifications from members of the group?
I think this project is great. These deals are so hard to put together. I know how hard they are, and looking at the capital stack, it's a lot of work. I'm just curious, so what sort of features make it particularly LGBTQ plus friendly, or is that programming or services or design or all of the above?
Actually, I mean, one of the things that, as we visited some of these, other communities around the country, there's only probably less than 10 of them nationally now. It's mostly revolves around two issues. One is programming and one is culturally competent staff. And so looking at opportunities to do specialized programming that's geared towards, the future residents of this group, including specialized health services and other types of social service programs. We've started to have some connections already with some of the local colleges and universities, and also with Action Housing about ways we can do intergenerational programming with other members, LGBTQ+ community, and also specialized training. So we just put 1,000 of our employees through SAGE training, and SAGE has been a big supporter of this, and they're also helping us in some of the programming. So ways to make this a welcoming environment for LGBTQ seniors is going to be key to us. And we think the two key elements are really that culturally trained staff and the specialized programming that will be developed there. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Mark, do you have something?
Yes, I just was wondering, I mean, this is not super typical of how we do it with so much that's still left to get committed. What's the anticipated time? I guess maybe Evan, what's the commitment look like, and how long would that typically be? And is that enough time to fill in the rest of the missing gap from other sources?
Yeah, the commitment, I believe, is for either 5 or 6 months. And at that point, if the project hadn't closed yet, we would, revisit and figure out if they've got a path forward or not, or if it would, be something where we need to possibly, revoke the commitment for the time being and revisit it at a later date. But right now, as we're seeing with some of these larger LIHTC projects, there's a need for the URA to have and the Housing Opportunity Fund to have a formal involvement with the project to help attract some of the other investment, to help close the gaps that we continue to see opening up on these projects. So trying to manage that
Thank you.
reality right now.
Thanks.
Is there parking in the building? I'm just curious.
Underneath, if you see Lena, where the property is it's about almost 2 stories from bottom to top. So that bottom layer is actually a parking garage. So, and where there's that sort of light to the right, that will be the entrance to the parking garage. And then there'll also be about a half a dozen spaces up on the Craft Avenue side as well.
Any additional dialogue on the project? Hearing none, do we have a member that would like to bring the motion forward as stated on the slide?
I can do it. It's
There you
Alan. I move to authorize to us to enter into a rental gap program loan agreement in an amount of up to $1 million of HOF funds with Oakland Pride Housing LLC for the construction of Oakland Pride Housing.
Do we have a second?
Bill, I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Bay. Any abstentions for the vote?
I have to.
We have Lena Andrews with an abstention. Do we have any others?
Yes, Karen Garrett will be abstaining.
Thank you, Karen. 2 abstentions. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations to Oakland Pride.
Thank you very much.
You're
We appreciate
welcome.
the support.
We look forward to hearing some updates, so please don't hesitate to come back. We're here every month.
Thank you. I'll be here next week.
Yeah. Thank you. So moving on to the next project. Here we have the African Queens Apartments. This is a request for a $410,000 rental gap program loan for Armani Christian Community Development Corporation for the residential portion of the African Queens development at 2159 Center Avenue in the Middle Hill District. Next slide, thanks. The development will consist of 12 units of rental housing, 3 units at 30% AMI, 5 units at 50% AMI, and 4 units at 80% AMI. All 12 units will accept project-based vouchers. The RGP loan is to cover, $330,000 worth of construction costs and $80,000 for residential services for tenants. And these services include educational and employment training, provided by the University of Pittsburgh's Community Engagement Center, and life skills financial literacy courses provided by Catapult Greater Pittsburgh. The total development cost is estimated to reach almost $7 million. The development team has secured 13 different funding sources to fund the total development cost. You can see in your loan review packet all of the sources that they have. You can see all the sources that are listed in the loan review packet that they've secured so far. This is one of the more ambitious, let's say, financial capital stacks I've seen when considering the amounts of sources that this project has gone to and secured. It's quite impressive. Just to run through a couple highlights here. They've secured a $2 million redevelopment assistance capital program grant, a RACB, through the URA, a $1 million gap funding source from the Housing Authority of Pittsburgh, a $900,000 PHFA Housing Options Program grant, an $800,000 permanent mortgage through First National Bank, and a $750,000 grant through FHLB. The building will be a 4-story mixed-use project built across 3 parcels on Center Avenue in the Middle Hill District. It's located in the main business corridor there, in part of the URA's Avenues of Hope initiative. Some of you might be familiar with this, but to repeat, this is an initiative that aims to rebuild housing and commercial development along select group of 7 corridors in the city's main streets to help communities that have been historically underinvested in and neglected. Amani Christian Community Development Corporation is the borrower and developer for this project. And Amani was founded in 1999 as a grassroots community organization. And the organization has a history of working with URA to acquire and rehabilitate property in the Hill District. And we're excited to continue that partnership. This is the biggest project that we've taken on with Amani to date. And finally, construction is estimated to begin in the first quarter of 2024 and should wrap up early second quarter of 2025. I think we should have, I saw him on earlier, but Reverend Walls with Amani should be on the call. Reverend, if you're there, this is, I'd like to give you an opportunity to jump in and say a few words.
Thank you. Appreciate the time of the board this afternoon to present our African Queens project, named for the female residents who have contributed so much to the social, educational, and economic landscape that we now celebrate here in the Greater Hill District. As mentioned earlier by Ben, this is an outgrowth of the Avenues of Hope RFP. We were privileged to present our project and have it approved by the URA and as well many segments of our community. We're excited about this project because we think it fulfills the needs of a different profile, if you will, of community residents. As you can see on the chart, almost all of the units will be 60% AMI or below. We will be serving 6 residents and will be characterized by homeless and 6 special needs. This will include homeless persons, Vietnam vets, youth who have aged out of, which is special to my heart, who have aged out of the foster care system and are looking for places to reside, as well as 3 handicap accessible units on the second, third, 1 each on the second, third, and 4th floor. Not only will it meet the needs of this special population, but it will be an economic generator for the Hill District, and we are grateful to have that opportunity as well. So it has been a long project. The community is looking forward to us beginning construction, hopefully, and in the first quarter. We recently received an extension from the Federal Home Loan Bank to close on this particular project. And so not only is the funding that we hope we will receive from you important, but that was also important as we hope to close with 3 entities, the Housing Authority, Federal Home Loan Bank, and the URA. So it has been a long journey. We're so grateful to have the opportunity to bring this project to you this afternoon.
Thank you, Reverend Walls. If I remember this property correctly, it's a little strip. It's a pretty tight, skinny lot, if I'm remembering correctly. Can you talk a little bit about the units themselves? So we know, the AMI levels, are these all 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, a combination?
So there are 9 1-bedroom units and 3 2-bedroom units. So on each floor, second, third, and fourth, there will be 3 1-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom units. There will be a handicap accessible unit also within that configuration as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Comments, questions, anything that folks would like to have clarified?
Is there a rendering or like an image of?
We did, and I apologize for that. Jim is away from the office, and it's I did not send that to David in time to have him present that to you. But we do have renderings. I apologize for that.
If I could chime in, I'm Jim Palmer, Amani's Director of Real Estate. If I could just take a moment to clarify. So we have some out-of-date renderings that don't have the current design fully, but we do have fully complete permit-ready drawings, which we are planning to file within the month with PLI. And as some of you may be aware, renderings can be costly to have made by architects. So we opted to direct our funds toward getting the construction documents, the drawings up to snuff so that we can financially close within the next few months, break ground early next year, and get building the thing.
It'd be cool if we could see just an elevation then or something. I mean, not right now, but maybe you could circulate it after the meeting.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Reverend Walls and Jim, congratulations on putting this complicated thing together and for getting an extension from FHLB. That is its own adventure. Can you talk a little bit? You talked about the targeted populations that the residents, will fit into. I understand some of that is tied up in your Federal Home Loan Bank funding source. Can you talk about? And I saw there's like $80,000 in the budget for services. Can you talk about the services a little bit? And are those services going to help you guys? Like make sure to get make sure that the types of residents that you're targeting actually can make it into the building?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can speak to that. So the services we are committed to providing as part of our Federal Home Loan Bank funding agreement, which we'll be using if awarded as you mentioned, the $80,000 of the rental gap program funds for, include tenant financial education courses. So like help with credit monitoring and helping to maintain tenancy so that, as tenants have bumps in the road with their income situation, we're a nonprofit developer. We are mission driven, so we're not interested in evictions at all. We're trying to nip those in the bud by being proactive with our education approach with services provided to the tenants. We'll also be using those funds to activate a tenant council so that the tenants, the residents can have a sense of ownership of the building and having being able to chime in on the direction of the building and other education and community activities we have planned with our services through Catapult and the University of Pittsburgh.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Jim. I just know that some of the populations you're targeting have barriers, right? And hoping that you guys are thinking about that and leaving a little bit, or at least there being a plan somewhere to have some subsidy, some little bit of subsidy in their back pocket for what it's going to take to get to get people stable in a unit from some of those target populations, because that was a big list.
Yes, and we certainly I appreciate that, Alan. Once again, we're mission driven, and so we were intentional about the population that we wanted to reach, recognized that they needed support. We have applied to some foundations for additional support. Hopefully we will be hearing from them within the next 30 to 60 days. And so we really want to be intentional about supporting the population and will be in this building.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Does the building have an elevator?
Thank you. Good question. It does have an elevator. It has an elevator to the second, third, and fourth floor. Yes.
Any additional questions? Clarifications members of the group would like to have? Hearing none, do we have a group member that would like to make a motion for the action as listed on the slide?
It's Jamil. Make a motion for the authorization to enter a rental gap program loan agreement in an amount of up to $410,000 with the Monte Christian Community Development Corporation for the construction of African Queens Apartments located at 2159 Center Avenue.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Kelly. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have any abstentions from the vote? Lena Andrews has identified that she's abstaining. Do we have others?
Yes, this is Karen. I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Thanks, Karen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries, and congratulations to African Queens Apartments. We're looking forward to your project.
Thank you so much on behalf of our board and our team. We really want to thank you. This is a big shot in the arm for the project. Thank you so much for your confidence.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Congrats, guys.
Thanks.
All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So we're going to go into the meat of the meeting. Evan's going to walk us through.
Well, sure. So we've read out the comments that we received. On the next slide is the draft allocation plan. As it was approved last month and what was put up for public comment. So I think this is probably the starting point for the discussion today based on how the advisory board feels about either the comments that came in or just a month of reflecting, whatever it may be. But so everyone understands what we're doing here. The plan that you all approved today will be taken to the URA Board of Directors a week from today. And at that point, that would be a final approval of the allocation plan, and we would then move to City Council for their approval as we approach the 2024 year. So I will start it there, or I'll leave it there, and if need be, I can share a more malleable plan that we're all looking at and changing if any changes are needed. But I'll throw it back to you, Adrian, if you want to start facilitating the discussion.
So if everybody remembers last month, we had a lot of robust and passionate dialogue. We have limited resources and a lot of wonderful competing priorities. So this was the culmination of quite a bit of discussion and compromise. So I would like to start the discussion with just very clear concerns about the allocation plan as it is shown here. We do have competing priorities, and we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to engage in the conversation. These are substantive changes that we want to, really walk through today to put forward to the URA the most intelligent work that we were able to do, given the lens that the HOF is able to see the, housing landscape through. And so do we have comments from the group related to the allocation plan, concerns or changes that are felt to be, critical to the work we did last month? Hi, sorry, I'm trying to see if I can see hands up there.
And I had to miss the meeting last month because I was not in the country, and so I'm sorry I didn't participate, and I'm not requesting a change, but I do want to get on the record expressing my concern about the decrease in rental gap funding. We just saw 2 projects and they used $1.4 million. And we have $2 million for the whole year. And so we essentially used a large percentage of our annual allocation in one meeting. And I get it, like all of these programs are important. They're all oversubscribed, not undersubscribed. But costs of developing affordable housing have really gone up, like between construction costs and the interest on loans, like those 2 combined factors have made this field really hard and really challenging. And in that environment, we're decreasing our resources. And I know that there's this housing bond floating out there, but we don't know what that's gonna look like. And we don't know what's gonna happen with the ARP funds. And I just would hate to impact our ability to create a long-term permanent stock of affordable housing that is controlled by, you know, mission-driven entities like the ones that we saw today. So I know I missed the discussion and I just want to get my concerns out there on the table.
Yeah, Lena, and I do think you're right. There's a lot of speculation about funds that might be available for that particular activity. And you know, each member had different views on that particular strategy in this conversation. And one of the things that we did talk about heavily last time is that even though there is an allocation plan can go back through the process if we really do see a community need that has changed significantly, or we feel that resources need to be deployed in a different direction. We created that flexibility in demo, but that's, you know, that's not going to even fund one project, to your point. So I do think that the group has that level of anxiety about making the right choice and making that choice in such a way that there's no opportunity to change that choice. And I do think what we heard from the URA staff, and a good part of the discussion was, if there really is a change in the community or a need that we feel that we really have to address, we do have the opportunity to have that conversation of, you know, can there be funds from one line item that are moved, or, you know, undeployed funds used in a different category. So thank you for that. And that was really, you know, I think a big part of everyone's anxiety from last meeting.
Hi, I just had, I guess, a question. I don't know if this would be for Evan, but we had looked up for, and I think this would help with Lena's query, because again, we did spend some time on this. But if you could show the column, if you have access to it, of what still remains, because I think that was, I remember this discussion in terms of what to move where, including like that public comment where we said we weren't putting anything to the small landlord fund, that it had been essentially unexpended. I think it's a more robust picture of than just where we're putting the money that's currently coming in. If you have access to that, I think it'd be helpful for this discussion.
Thank you, Kelly. And to folks who are virtual, we can't actually necessarily see you put your hand up. So if I'm not calling on you and there's something that you'd like to say, please just chime in.
Okay. I can share that. It's just this screen with one other column. But Derek, I need you to stop sharing in order for me to do that.
Thanks, Derek.
I didn't take it personally, Adrienne, when you didn't call on me. I just just figured I'd start talking and it'd be okay.
I thought I saw you, but it's hard.
Yeah, I know it's weird.
Bear with me just one moment.
Let's see, like, I mean, this is, I don't think this is nearly enough necessarily anyway, but there is more money that it's not just this 2 mil here. Again, still not necessarily enough. But I think for all of the categories, it's kind of helpful to review.
Thanks, Kelly. I agree.
Yeah, that is helpful, but that's also kind of timing related and like when LIHTC deals close, because they have big gaps and it depends on when they come to this board and who's getting money from HOV.
Yeah. Like I said, still not enough, but slightly less depressing, hopefully, across the board.
And I do think we heard in the public comment pretty loud and clear that the community is struggling with the same issue we are struggling with, that it's infinite need and limited funding, and really determining the most laser focused strategy to have the most impact is incredibly difficult, especially across these categories, because they really address people in different places in that process. So other comments, concerns, clarifications folks would like to raise in addition to Lena's comments, which have been recorded?
Yeah, I'll express concern that, there's doing things to keep people in their house can prevent the need to have to build really expensive housing. And that was, again, it's sort of repeating what I said at the last meeting. I know how many of us were left to vote on that. That was my other concern.
I think we still had 6.
So I can look at the
For the
meeting
final
minutes and
vote.
count, but because it was a tie is how that didn't go forward. There wasn't a majority one way or the other on the motion to move more money into the LAP.
Well, then I rephrased the motion and that one passed because we were originally at a tie.
Agreed.
I'm sorry?
Agreed.
Okay, yes, it wasn't yeah.
And again, these are repetitive conversations, related to these same competing priorities. And I think we all have to, continue to validate the fact that any one of these incredibly important pieces of the housing landscape, these are all on here because they were identified by the community as the most critical items in the housing landscape. Every time we are taking from one and putting to another, one of these critical items is losing support. And there is a gravity to that, we're going to continue to struggle with these limited funds. So we all believe that it's incredibly important to make sure people can stay in their house. How do they do that? They do that with HSP. They do that with legal assistance. How do we create a larger pool of housing stock? We do that through the rental gap program. We do that through homeowner assistance. We do that through for sale development. We do that through the small landlord fund. I mean, all of these we are going to continue to really struggle. And I think, unfortunately, maybe sometimes we're making decisions more about who's speaking the loudest than, really looking at the data that we have and really doing our best to balance where there are gaps. Again, with a $10 million budget, there's a lot here. So substantively,
Adrian, that's great, but we also know that there's going to be a bond issue that the city is in the URA are working on as we're sitting here taking this vote for $30 to $45 million to help with the brick and mortar projects. And that's the context that this is in. It's not like we're trying to abandon ship on, we're never going to build another brick and mortar project. It's just, these are the funds that can get used for things that aren't brick and mortar rather than bond issues that can't get used that way. You can't take this and use it for some of these other things that we do. That's at least that's why I was proposing it. And I just want to make sure that everybody that might not have been at the meeting that is going to vote for this understands that's the context. You can't use bond issue for LAP.
Sure, I think I said that when I made my comment, and I think all of these programs, I mean, there are other funding sources that fund some of these other things too. I just wanted to get my comments on the record.
So do we have substantive concerns with the allocation plan that was put together, this final draft from last meeting? That there are really things that are missing the mark, or there are significant changes that need to be made to what's been proposed?
I'm sure you guys talked about this too, but is there capacity in our partners that do the legal assistance work to spend that much money in a year?
They did indicate that there was, Lena, they did address the slow spend down in the beginning. Also, one of the pieces that they were really looking at is expanding that lawyer of the day program into some of the parts of the city that really have high eviction cases coming through, but do not have that lawyer of the day assistance. So they wanted to, be able to continue what they're doing and then also add certain parts of the city into that service piece.
Okay.
Did I capture that correctly? Did I misrepresent that in any way, group?
That's how I remember the conversation last week.
So I stepped out last time and did not have reception to be able to hear. Was there a conversation around the for sale development program? So I think maybe in relation to what Mark just said about this other sort of body of funding that might be coming. I see there's nothing in the small landlord fund, but the for sale development, was there a conversation around that as well?
There was conversation around all of the categories. And again, it's that balance of, there's rental housing and then there's also for sale housing and trying to strike the balance between both. Because there's an appetite and a need for both in communities. So folks, it was reduced, if I'm remembering correctly, for sale development was reduced.
I believe it was, yeah, maybe by a couple 100,000, yeah.
And demo dollars, again, really being thought of as that way that we sort of have a placeholder. Small landlord fund, I think the biggest issue that members of the group brought forward is not the value of it, but that it has been slow to have uptake. And if people remember, maybe 3 months ago, we talked about convening a small focus group with landlords to maybe rethink how it's structured, because if landlords aren't really responding, if there's barriers that we're creating and it's not working well, what would be those opportunities to rethink it? So it certainly was not that is not a valuable and needed service. It was much more of, I believe, in my head, what I was hearing was much more of the conversation that it hasn't been utilized highly. And how would we actually structure a program where it would be utilized highly so it would have more impact? And demo dollars could certainly be used for something like that.
One of the issues I believe around utilization of the small landlord fund was that we were looking at it either being a no interest loan or some sort of grant hybrid, and that is at least but he's not here, so I don't want to speak for him, but it's something that Derek had brought to our attention, was like, for a small landlord, it's a lot harder to make the repairs, repay the loan, etc. And so since it has been underutilized, so we have everything from last year plus 112 left previously, when you look at the uncommitted being larger than last year's allocation plan, is why we wound up gutting it, for lack of a better term, this year, because it does have significant holdover.
Additional thoughts, concerns, clarifications that members of the group would like to have at this time? And if I can't see your hand up, please just insert yourself. Well, this is much quieter than last month. So it feels like, even though we don't think that this is perfect and have some concerns about how this might impact projects forward, looking at the uncommitted and understanding that those funds can move forward, I'm not hearing a lot of just, substantive, this is the absolute wrong direction. Are we in a place where we're ready to make a motion, or do we need more dialogue?
Hi, this is Karen. I'd like to make a comment. As I was hearing the whole discussion at the last meeting, part of my reason for voting nay was specifically, as I participate in a lot of small landlord discussions here at the Housing Authority. That's a significant area where we see a lot of small landlords who are struggling with houses that are primarily their, I'm going to say, bread and butter, and not able to assume a loan in addition to using the rental amount for their income. And I just felt very strongly about us looking at how it's currently set up in that loan/ratio to grants or hybrid, as Kelly had mentioned. because there is just so many small landlords out there that are really needing the help and could really, I mean, I look at some of the HQ inspections that are failing for, let's say, windows or replacement of pavements or replacements of, a variety of issues that are impacting people's lives, and people are being evicted because of HQ inspections failing. And if they could have only gotten some resources to really aid them in keeping that house up to specs, then, subsequently people wouldn't be homeless.
Right.
So I just wanted to share that, while I still, would like us to revisit some more discussion or some way of looking at this budget to reflect, even if we can't do anything today, having that discussion later in regards to looking at how that small landlord fund is currently operating.
Thank you for that, Karen. I think from the discussion that we did have related to this program, so now, this is on the table in a more robust way for the third time. And I'm curious how the group feels about potentially spending time next month, really talking about the program as it exists now. Derek has given us some great information on sort of what seems to be working and what might be barriers, and really bring our best thinking to a next meeting of how we steward those uncommitted funds forward, and then how we could also, potentially restructure the program using everybody's expertise. How do folks feel about spending some time on that in our next meeting on the agenda?
So I like that. I was gonna actually kind of was getting to a similar space, I think, in that I don't know if we need to continue to be everything that we've been, as we continue to maybe think about narrowing our focus. I think there's opportunity in that space to talk about what this sort of hybrid, potentially other program looks like, but that also might not be our lane moving forward. And so I'd like to spend some time. I think we might need appropriate prompts that'll help guide our conversation for next week or for next month. And there's a few things that are sort of jumping out. Like it's very clear that the rental gap financing and the homeowner assistance and even the legal assistance are things that are in our lane. It might be looking at some of those other areas and saying, is this our lane moving forward? But I think based off of what we have right now, this is probably the most fair version of this. Let me phrase that, because someone's going to take note. have an issue with it. I think that this budget that is proposed is one that I'm willing to stand behind moving forward, and that just because there's been a lot of conversation to this point already. So.
Would that sound like a motion? Would you be making a motion?
So I would like to make a motion that we, after lots of conversation, that we accept this budget, proposed budget, moving forward. So there need to be more to that motion.
I don't think so, except the allocation plan as presented.
2024 allocation plan, yeah.
All right, thanks. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the 2024 allocation plan as presented.
Do we have a second of that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Do we have anyone that needs to abstain? I don't think there would be any reason for anyone to abstain that I could possibly think of. But just to ask, I don't think we have any abstentions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Sorry, I think we just had a little time gap on being able to hear people. So it appears that our votes have. Karen?
Nay.
So you're voting nay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Our apologies. We're having a little tiny bit of technical difficulties. Did we have any other nays that maybe I didn't hear? Okay, thank you, everybody. Motion carries, and let's, recommit to ourselves that this is an active and open conversation that needs to change if things are changing in the community. Resources don't present themselves as we maybe thought that they would. This allocation plan, again, is not the end of the conversation for the year. It's really important for us to be bringing these things back to the table. And the first order of business for next month is we want to bring the conversation on the small landlord fund back into focus. As we have, many months talked about that we would really like to, do some good thinking on that program. All right, with that vote being had, we have some programmatic expenditures and updates from the URA.
Yeah, Derek, are you able to share again? So while Derek's getting that up, let me just say with Jad departing this month, it's kind of been duct tape and chicken wire trying to get this.
And we're all very sad.
Yes, that is, I wanted to acknowledge that if he's streaming right now. But just a bit of a different look this month. This is truly just expenditures in October by each program. We'll work next month to have, some geographic data mixed in and get it back to kind of how we want to be displaying it. But this is an interesting look at just actually money out the door, like truly out the door, not just committed, but spent this month. I think kind of notable this month would be the legal assistance program that we did some efforts with some of our providers to catch up on some past invoices that just some documentation that needed to come to the URA for us to pay out. So it shows as being a bit high this month, but overall it was a really active month for all of our programs, as we can see here on the slide. I will say our down payment assistance program is also moving at quite a clip right now because of the own PGH homeownership assistance program, which is basically providing principal reductions on people's first mortgage. And that's funded through the American Rescue Plan, but then separately, the URA still offers through the Housing Opportunity Fund assistance for people's down payments or the closing costs that come with purchasing a home. So that's become a really popular program, and we actually see now there's an increase this year in the allocation, partially because of that. So yeah, that is the extent of the updates we have for you this month. Again, hope to have more for you next month, but the only remaining item is just an announcement about next month. We'll be in this room again Thursday, December 7th. We will still have a virtual option. It will be streamed live on the city's YouTube channel. But I hope to see people in person.
With the agenda sort of being closed at this point, I would like to ask members of the group. So, we know that we want to talk about the small landlord fund and how it's operating and what is allocated to it. Are there other key items in the allocation plan, key programs that we want to have a next dialogue about so that we can dive deeper and we can have, more of an understanding? We can start to, again, plan for not only 2024, but 2025. So there are different things that seem at different times to sort of ebb and flow with group interest. But, the allocation time is always when we get this, intense level of feelings about it. I know Mark has regularly talked to us about, it's not just what we do with these funds, it's also things like advocacy as this group, how we're trying to leverage other funds, the voice that we have in a community, the way that we're engaging folks. So if there are things that we feel like we haven't talked about and we really need to talk about, let's start to add them to our upcoming agendas. We can dive into these topics month by month to really make sure that we feel comfortable and confident with what we're doing. And maybe it's not, coming to you now, the thing that you want to talk about next, but please, I meet with the URA a week before to really just put that fine point on the agenda. A week before isn't enough time for us to plan to have a really good deep dive into a topic. So if we can be thinking about that at every meeting, if, you know, members can be communicating that in between meetings, if we need an additional work group, these are all things we can do. It doesn't have to stop. The conversation doesn't have to stop with, okay, that's now going over to the URA and then city council will vote on it. We can continue this dialogue.
So I'd like to recommend that in our next meeting that there's some sort of update from the working groups that we already have. And it's not in necessarily alignment with the budget per se. And then sort of separately, well, maybe more connected to the budget piece, is what our mission is, like really defining what our lane is. I think that we've spent a lot of time successfully being a lot of things to a lot of different people. And it's getting tougher and tougher to do that. And so I think having that front and center would be helpful for us going into our next year.
That's great. Thank you. Other thoughts? I see ponderous faces.
I would like to have a discussion to see if there's a way that the Opportunity Fund can have an impact on capacity building for not only, you know, for some bricks and mortar sorts of things, but also around social services and other things that need to happen around some of the supportive housing that we've done, and capacity building for community groups that are trying to work with HSP and HAP programs.
Mark, I love that idea. This is Alan. I think that I think there's lots of ways, both with like the providers that are already stepping up for the city, but also like the gaps that just exist in the ecosystem generally, right? And, you know, affordable housing more broadly. I think I'd love to have that conversation.
That's fantastic. And, you know, sort of to that point, the housing justice table that really formed around the Housing Opportunity Fund has had a very rough year. There's really been a struggle to keep it staffed, to keep people coming, to have a focus. And, you know, that was a group that many folks can attest to were, you know, driving this community conversation. So it becomes harder and harder for community groups to sustain themselves. So also thinking about public comment and who's participating and are we in person, you know, it should always be, no offense to the URA, it should always be more community members than URA. Or hopefully more community members than us, you know, having the conversation. So, you know, I know that the outreach committee is working on that piece as well, you know, really trying to get back to, you know, capacity building of organizations, but also capacity building of the community conversation.
The location of these meetings is not on the website either, so that also could be why no one's here. So we could add that also.
So enhancing our outreach and communication just overall. It feels so quiet today. I hope that folks are feeling good.
I'm here, and so now everyone is just amped up. It's me. I apologize.
Well, I hope everybody's feeling good about the dialogue. None of us are 100% comfortable with everything and would love to be able to do a little bit more, maybe in different ratios of support. But thank you for coming. Thanks for the, you know, ongoing conversation, even if it's hard. This is a lot of good stuff for us to have, you know, regularly populated into the agenda so you can feel more proactive month by month in this process, as opposed to just once a year. So is there any business or announcements that we have not addressed in this meeting?
No, all good. And I just want, hey, Adrian, I just want to say, I think it's part of the quiet might also be hybrid is weird, right? Hybrid's kind of tough to, like, when everybody's a screen, you kind of know how you can see people. And when everybody's in person, you can kind of see people, and hybrid makes it kind of tough. That's not a suggestion to do anything different. I understand accessibility is important, but I also just think, for me personally, hybrid's kind of weird.
Noted.
We do have the room for the next 6 months. If the board wanted to make it in person, we can do. But we can leave that.
So did everybody hear, Evan? We can do fully in person. We have the room for the next 6 months. Thanks
You're
to our colleagues here at Dollar Bank. So we could be fully in person.
Pretty fun to be in person.
Yeah, I mean, I would be down for that if that's what, if that isn't a burden for everybody else.
So maybe we strive for the December meeting to be fully in person, and I will commit to bringing refreshments.
Nice. Donuts?
We could have donuts at 2 o'clock. I have no problem.
We'll still have the hybrid option. How about in that one? Just.
But maybe in the invite, we just remind folks that we're hoping to make the commitment for the December meeting, which is December 7th at 2 o'clock, to be held here at the Dollar Bank first floor conference room. This is an incredibly welcoming building. So I hope that everybody feels really comfortable coming here and participating in person. And we'll all try to also commit to making sure that the groups that we're affiliated with understand that we're in person, where we are, that people can come, that they can make public comment, and try to make that as easy as possible. So we can leave 2023 with like our best effort for engagement.
Sounds good.
Wonderful. Well, hearing no new business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Lena motions. Thank you, everyone. We will see you in December here at the Dollar Bank building.